Imagine waking up and realizing that what seemed untouchable was suddenly violated before the world's eyes. Sounds exaggerated? Well, that's exactly what happened when Israel launched an airstrike against Hamas leaders right in Qatar, a territory many believed was beyond reach. This action not only shook international politics but also challenged long-held beliefs about diplomacy, sovereignty, and even energy security. The paradox is brutal. While some see Israel as a country crossing limits, others believe it merely exposed an uncomfortable truth: in the geopolitical game, there's no such thing as a truly neutral zone. And it's precisely this clash of narratives that makes the episode so fascinating. We're talking about an event involving war, economics, and power, but at the same time, it knocks on the average person's door, at the gas price, at the pump, and even in the way we interpret the world. Now, the big question is, what's really behind this attack? Was it just a military operation, or are we witnessing a much bigger play, with impacts we can't yet fully measure? The answer demands diving deep into a chessboard where every move is calculated, and that's where the real story begins. In the early hours of a tense Thursday, Israel launched an airstrike that crossed both borders and expectations. This wasn't just any attack. It was a surgical strike targeting senior Hamas officials, including Ismail Haniyeh, the group's political chief, while he was in Doha, Qatar. Reports indicated several of his close aides were also killed, though Qatar and Hamas initially denied the extent of the casualties. The move rattled not only local security but also global perceptions of how far Israel was willing to go in its military strategy. What's striking here is that many believe Doha served as a kind of diplomatic safe haven, immune from this type of incursion. Looking at the aftermath, it's clear this airstrike wasn't an isolated move. Israel confirmed the elimination of key Hamas leadership, calling it a decisive blow to the group's external operations, while Hamas vowed retaliation, declaring 3 days of mourning across Gaza. Casualties reportedly included at least a dozen people, some of them civilians working near the compound, sparking immediate international criticism. The decision reflects a clear pattern: use force not only to neutralize targets but to send a sharp political message. After all, the presence of Hamas in Qatari territory has always been a point of friction, and now that tension has erupted explosively. The immediate aftermath in Doha was equally telling. Security forces cordoned off entire districts, flights at Hamad International Airport faced delays amid rising concerns, and Qatar summoned Israeli diplomats through third-party channels to issue protests. Meanwhile, in Gaza and the West Bank, demonstrations erupted, with thousands pouring into the streets to honor those killed. Timing, as always, was everything. Israel acted while much of the world's attention was fixed on other crises, ensuring the strike's shockwave would reverberate politically, militarily, and symbolically for weeks to come. What stands out here is that this isn't just a military clash, it's a deeply political move. By carrying out this airstrike, Israel wanted to make it crystal clear: there's no safe place for Hamas leaders, not even in Doha, supposedly shielded by diplomatic ties. That message was as much for the world as it was for Qatar, which for years has tried to balance its image as a mediator while maintaining relationships with groups like Hamas. Politics here speaks just as loudly as bombs. It's important to remember the region's complex history of alliances and rivalries. Qatar has often positioned itself as a mediator in talks between Israel and Hamas, yet at the same time, it's been accused of financing the group, a paradox that sparks friction with both Washington and Tel Aviv. The result is a domino effect: every political move reverberates not only in the Middle East but in Western capitals as well. In a way, each airstrike doesn't just hit a physical target, it detonates inside political offices across the globe. This makes us think about how modern wars extend far beyond the battlefield. Military decisions are tightly interwoven with political narratives, public opinion, and even financial markets. A clear example: investors watch these events closely, knowing that an escalation between Israel and Hamas can directly affect oil prices and global trade. The Qatar airstrike isn't just a military action, it's a reminder of how politics and strategy intertwine, shaping futures far beyond the region. The international reaction was immediate and intense. Washington, for instance, found itself in an awkward spot. On one hand, it's a historic ally of Israel, on the other, it relies on Qatar, home to one of the largest American military bases in the region. This dilemma exposed how U.S. foreign policy is constantly tested in the Middle East. Meanwhile, European leaders were divided. Some condemned the airstrike, while others stressed that Israel was simply responding to a concrete threat from Hamas. In the Arab world, the response carried even more emotion. Countries like Egypt and Jordan expressed concern about escalating conflict, fearing that the attack in Doha could set dangerous precedents. Iran, as expected, seized the opportunity to reinforce its anti-Israel narrative, trying to rally more regional support for Hamas. Turkey, under Erdogan's leadership, was blunt. He denounced Israel's action as state terrorism and openly defended Hamas as a legitimate part of the Palestinian struggle. His rhetoric didn't just inflame tensions, it also highlighted Ankara's bid for political clout in the region. The UN, on the other hand, took a more diplomatic but still critical stance. The Secretary-General urged immediate restraint, warning that the strike risked violating Qatar's sovereignty and destabilizing an already fragile region. At the same time, he called for renewed political dialogue, words that almost sound utopian against the backdrop of military escalation. On social media, the contrast between the UN's measured tone and Erdogan's fiery rhetoric fueled heated debates. It was a stark reminder that the battle of narratives can be just as powerful as the missiles themselves. This episode shows how the Middle East remains a chessboard where every move carries global weight. The airstrike in Doha made it clear that Israel sees no borders when it comes to Hamas, shaking the sense of security in countries like Qatar. Practically, it means that any territory hosting Hamas leaders could be considered a potential target. That dynamic challenges the neutrality some states try to project, forcing them to pick sides in an increasingly polarized political game. The consequences go straight to the heart of the global economy. Qatar is the world's largest exporter of liquefied natural gas, LNG, supplying around 20% of the international market. Any instability on its soil triggers immediate market reactions. Following the attack, energy futures spiked, and investors rushed into safe haven assets like gold and the US dollar. This isn't unprecedented. In 2017, when Qatar faced a diplomatic blockade, energy prices wavered sharply. Now, with Israel and Hamas in the spotlight and Qatar unexpectedly entangled, market pressure is even greater. And it doesn't stop there. The ripple effect reaches into everyday life worldwide. If natural gas prices climb, Europe pays more to heat homes in winter. If oil markets feel indirect pressure, gasoline prices rise, and this cascade fuels inflation. In other words, an airstrike in Doha doesn't stay confined to political headlines. It shows up in electricity bills, grocery stores, and at the gas pump, even for people who never thought they were connected to the Israel-Hamas-Qatar conflict. That's where we see how geopolitics and economics are inseparable, and how a battlefield can cross oceans without firing another shot. After going through all these points, the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Understanding that an airstrike in Doha isn't just about Israel, Hamas, or Qatar, but also about global politics, economics, and even your daily life, completely changes how we view the news. And if all of this directly affects your wallet, your choices, and even your worldview, ignoring it would be like playing blindfolded in a game that's already underway. So, think about it, will you keep accepting the oversimplified versions you see in headlines, or are you ready to uncover the hidden layers that truly drive global geopolitics? That shift in perspective may seem small, but in reality, it changes how you interpret events, debates, and decisions that may look distant but are tied to your everyday life. Seeking this kind of understanding is what separates those who simply consume news from those who grasp the machinery of power. And here's the direct invitation: if this content helped you see the world with greater clarity, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. This is just the beginning. There's much more to learn, reflect on, and debate. After all, understanding geopolitics isn't a luxury, it's survival. Are you ready to keep going on this journey?